Hey everybody, Singletrack Surgeon coming at you with another video, and today we are back on Lower Spitfire doing some trail planning, scouting, maintenance, whatever you want to call it. I get a lot of questions asking how do I plan the final route of my trails, and today I kind of want to answer that, not just by talking, but by showing you guys what I'm seeing and why I'm choosing the lines that I am. So without further ado, let's get into it. We're actually going to start out on the bottom of the trail. I always like to reference my connecting points before I get into the middle of the trail. That way you don't end up cutting into an area you didn't want to, and you end up exactly where the trail needs to be, at the top or at the bottom. So at the top, I actually linked it from the top down, and from this area, we're going from the bottom up. And below me, you can see two options. Now we're going into a field that actually goes out to the exit. Now here, I actually see two options. This is the trail that I've kind of dug in a little bit, get an idea. We've got an option to the right that cuts right there around that bush and drops in around another tree, or we have this other route that goes across here. Now, if we're gonna use that, obviously we're gonna have to go here because this is gonna be too sharp of a corner. So here's our split choice. Now this one obviously is going to hold a lot more speed because we don't have a sharp right-hand corner there. And it looks like the line naturally flows into this channel here, even though the little animal trail and the trail that we dug in goes here. I'm obviously going to pick this option because I like to use elevation the most efficient as possible. So if you can carry speed and actually go up the hill there, you can get longer trail out of the same amount of digging, and it just kind of flows better if you don't have to slam on those brakes. And let me tell you, it's a small secret of trail building. If you build the trails so people don't have to use brakes as much, you let the natural shape of the trail brake for you, you have to do less maintenance. And for me, that is always a bonus. This next section of trail is fairly straightforward. We've got a bench cut and some really cool features, rock features and stuff. You'll see that in a minute, but I wanted to explain why I stayed out of the canyon. Now you can see this canyon goes all the way up, and you can even see at the very top, the section that we cut in the other day. I like to stay out of lower canyons if at all possible, because all of this watershed from the top all the way down is going to be dropping into this canyon. And this south-facing slope specifically is pretty steep. And whenever you have a south-facing slope that holds most of your water, and it's really steep going into a canyon, that's going to mean there's a lot of erosion. And anything you build in there, you're either going to have to maintain a lot, or it's just going to get destroyed. So I popped off and onto this bench pretty early on, about I'd say a third of the way down from the top, because up there's not going to be as much watershed because you have all this hillside down here that's going to shed. But of course up there, it's not exposed to that yet, so less erosion, less maintenance. It's the name of the game. So as I've mentioned a couple times, I have actually ridden the section of trail already, and that's one really big piece of advice I'd give anybody looking to build in a specific area. Say you've picked a ridge, a hillside, or something that really isn't dense underbrush. I would actually say, well, get your bike and ride a couple lines, try out different variations of the same area. Because a lot of times when I build trails, like especially Sith, when I built Sith, it was totally different. And it was actually called Shapeshifter. Me and my dad built it 20 years ago now, a long time ago, and it was actually way different. And over the years, I changed things, and then I actually rebuilt the whole upper section, and now it's the trail it is today. And a lot of that could have been prevented actually by just riding a lot of the different sections before building them. So if you have the time, especially if you have access to an e-bike, it's a no-brainer. Pedal to the top. Go down 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times, see where you naturally gravitate towards, add some flow. Don't just take the straight line. And a lot of times you'll get a really cool flowy trail, and all you got to do is dig a little bit more and you've got a trail scratched in already. Another thing I like to look for when I'm scouting a trail are really cool defining features that may be unique. This one right here, you can't really see it on camera that well, but it comes down and it's off camber. There's a bunch of rocks here, and I'm actually going to cut those bushes back, and it's an off camber rock slab, and I'm going to use that to go into the chute, a little bit of a bush slalom, and then there's a rock bench that's actually right there, and I naturally gravitated towards this area while I was pre-riding it. And so it only made sense to utilize especially this upper section as part of the trail. Now we're leaving the bench and heading into the canyon. In the opposite direction, obviously you'll be leaving the canyon and going onto the bench, but this is one place I wanted to show kind of how I would deviate from what would be obvious. So most of the time, somebody would look at this canyon and go, okay, cool, I'm gonna ride this canyon all the way down. And you see it does actually have a pretty nice flow here. It goes through this bush here, you know, chop all this stuff out and just like power slide down that. But at the same time, it doesn't really use the elevation very effectively. You spend all this time pedaling all the way up to the top. You wanna use that elevation in a way that's fun, and if you have speed, allow yourself to build uphills that both control braking, like we mentioned earlier, and extend the length of the trail. So here, I'm actually not gonna come through this chute. I'm actually gonna come off the wall on the other side, which again, staying out of the creek, less erosion. The wall is gonna go up actually through those bushes. So it's gonna go up and around, come straight down. I'm gonna build a berm to my left here, and then go onto that bench. And some of that bench is flat, some of it's uphill, but in order to flow, you'll have to kind of let go of the brakes and go around this corner and then just let it flow into it. Now that's gonna improve the flow, it's gonna make the trail longer, and it's gonna make it easier to maintain. So now we're up further in the canyon, right below where we stopped working the other day. And I wanted to show you guys some of the warning signs that I look for when I'm looking at a canyon, and some of the reasons that I choose to go up on the walls instead of going through the middle. Now, the first is any type of erosion where rocks are holding and you see big cuts like this. So we've got some rocks that are broken out. We've got obviously a trench that's being created by the water. These sticks are slowing it down, which is also one of the reasons why I like to pile sticks on the edge of my trails, not in the dirt, but on the side. So it slows down some of the water. But even with that, you can see a lot of erosion, and it's digging this out here. You've got a hole here, and you know, it kind of combines to make a little bit of a notch right there. And I always like to avoid that, because that's gonna be your trail. If you end up pulling out these sticks, clearing this stuff out, and then you're riding down, creating even 1 tire mark, 2 tire marks, that is going to be a gutter, and it's gonna destroy your trail. So this next little bit is a little bit off topic, but I think it's really important, because as you're clearing and as you're figuring out the lines that you choose, you can kind of do this step, and that will help building, and it will create actually a better trail experience for the people that ride it. And that's lining the edge of your trail. So I mentioned it earlier, I do it to control water, but I also do it to create a visual. So much of bike riding is visual, which is why, you know, so many people post berm pictures and stuff like that, and people ooh and ah over the pretty berms and just the flow of the trail. And so one of the ways to kind of control that on trails that you build is by lining them. Now, you're not really doing it to stop cutters, even though that could be something that would be good, but you're basically lining to create a visual, to get that tunnel vision for the rider, so that as they're riding, their focus is towards the trail and not thinking, oh, maybe that's a line, or maybe that's a line, but here's the line, ride it this way, and then they can focus on the features that you build. I feel like throughout the years, I have not done this and then done it without even really thinking about it. And all the trails that I created that path have been my favorite and a lot of other people's favorites as well. So one thing that can actually be really detrimental to the building process and the ultimate outcome of building a trail can be a rigid mindset. So many times you'll scout a line and you'll envision a jump or a berm, or even the way the layout is a certain way in your head, and then you get stuck on it and you just build it that way. Just tunnel vision, this is what I saw in my head, so I'm gonna do it. And a lot of times it doesn't work. And so you really do need to be flexible. And this section of trail is actually the perfect example. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Right up there is actually where the trail comes in. I knew I wanted to use this chute because I wanted a steep way to get speed and get into the canyon to start the flow of this trail. Now, first off, I was coming down and I was coming down this section here and I was doing an enduro turn or kind of sliding around this bush and being pretty out of control and taking it down into the canyon. As we were building this upper section, the flow was working so well and there was a lot of speed. And even though I hadn't ridden it, I could see that because of the way we were building the trail, we would have a lot more speed than when I initially rode it. So instead of coming down this area here, I decided to take the trail up and around the corner. Now, because of all of that additional speed, you have the ability to flow and go up around this tree, which limits the need to brake. And then you have a chute right around it that will get you back up to speed and a berm to catch you. That berm will run all the way back to where I was before and lead into the chute. And I actually think this is gonna work out to be one of the coolest sections of trail. And it's one of those instances where something as simple as opening your mind and just kind of looking at what's around you to use and not just being stuck on that one idea can really help your trail build be more fun and, you guessed it, less maintenance. We're now at the entry chute of Lower Spitfire, and I wanted to show you another one of those last minute changes that I think is really going to work out. First, I had this planned to go down and actually around that bush on the bottom, which would create a slightly awkward left-hand corner after this chute. So you'd be going really fast and probably drag and brake through it to get a slight left and then really rail a catch berm. And I just figured this is gonna be a little bit difficult and probably create some issues with water. So instead of doing that, we went straight and actually went around this bush. That's gonna allow you to brake on this uphill or right where I'm standing right now and flow into that next section of trail that I just showed you where you flow up and around that corner. But as you can see, this is all downhill and this is a chute above us. So if you use all the speed here, kind of let go of the brakes, maybe brake check right here, and then flow into this bottom section, there's no pedaling necessary and you get more trail out of it and more flow. All right, guys, welcome to the top of the new build. This is the entrance, and as I showed you guys in the last video, this was probably one of the harder pieces to build because there was already an existing route down. So I had to keep in mind both routes when I was trying to design the entry. Now, I haven't ridden this yet, so I'm guessing I'll probably have to tweak it. But here is the entry chute. We've got a pretty hard left, and then we've got this right-hander, and you've got the catch berm that you saw in the last video, and then this here. Now, in order to not cannibalize either exit, Lower Spitfire or Castle Hill, I had to make sure I didn't alter this line. So this is the Castle Hill line that goes left. Or yeah, left. And then this is the one that goes right to Spitfire. So I had to build up a little bit here. You can kind of slow down. I'm probably gonna have to push that out so you can go more outside, pop up around this corner, and then head into Lower Spitfire. All right, guys, I wanted to leave you with one more tip, and that is don't let anybody tell you there is a right way or a wrong way to do anything. I will never tell you that. I will never tell you this is the only way to do something. I'm just gonna share the way I do things so that maybe you can adapt it to the way you work and make your trails better. All right, guys, you know what time it is. Remember to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for notifications. Share it with your friends, share it with your trail builder friends. Let's make more trails. And remember, go fast, get drifty, and don't suck. Phew!